Over the years, many of our favorite retailers come and go. While many last a long time and some indefinitely, there tends to be eras of change within the industry. And in the late 2000s and early 2010s, there definitely was one. A time where some of the strongest retailers out there would not survive. This is the late 2000s and early 2010s retail collapse. As the first few years of the new millennium passed by, several things in retail were becoming well established. Walmart and Target both had a strong foothold in the continental US. The smaller, more regionalized retailers were failing, while other, somewhat lesser known ones were going mainstream. And while this would work out very well for the consumer, the choices that they would have to buy, and for the businesses that would sell to them, in time, this would mean that others would be pushed out, or in some cases begin to be, even if they were well-established and national chains, unlike some of the retailers of old, which were just regional ones. Combine that with a coming economic storm, it wasn't going to matter how well known you were. And as the second half of the 2000s decade began to take shape, that would become more and more apparent. In 2007, CompUSA, an electronics chain with over 200 stores, would close a bunch of stores in early 2007, followed by an announcement of all stores closing in December 2007. This same month would be when the Great Recession would begin. In 2008, as the economy would really start to slump, KB Toys, a chain at one point that had north of 600 stores and was a staple in American malls, would fold shortly after the end of the year. Around this same exact time, Circuit City, an appliance and electronics chain, at the time numbering over 500 stores, would go under as well. Even though the recession would technically end in mid-2009, in 2010, nearly 50 retailers would have to resort to Chapter 11. 2011 would see one of the most famous bookstore chains ever go under. Borders Books, a chain of over 1,000 bookstores at one point just a few years prior, would close the few hundred stores that remained. Though some would continue outside of the US, it would be in name only and under a different company. So what happened? What was going on to these well-established and once successful companies? How is it that they could all fail so easily and so quickly, and all within a relative 4-year period? Well, there are several reasons, and it's a little bit more complicated than just saying that the economy went bad. Probably first and foremost, it would come down to changes in the competition. Chains like Walmart, Target, Best Buy, and even wholesale clubs like Costco were all on an expansion tear. Walmart and Target, while already growing heavily in the 1990s and being in most high-populated areas by the early 2000s, would continue to grow via saturating the areas that they already were in. Take a look at the comparison of Target stores between 2000 and 2009. They went from 757 to 1,682, more than doubling their footprint. Walmart, while its growth wouldn't be nearly what it was in the 1990s in terms of actual stores, would go on a massive effort to convert many of its existing stores to supercenters, going from 721 in 2000 to over 2,600 by 2009. These types of stores would essentially give you no reason to go anywhere else, offering everything a regular retail store would, plus groceries. Then there was Best Buy, going from 357 stores in 2000, nearly tripling to 1,023 in 2009. Adding such a large amount of retail stores on a national level in a relatively short amount of time was no doubt going to turn the market on its head, and put a big squeeze on competitors and knock a few out. And this isn't even getting into small footprint stores such as GameStop, which would grow by thousands of stores from 2003 to 2010 in the US. Then there was the economy. Interest rates would reach such just before the recession where taking on debt would become expensive. The economy would contract, unemployment would rise, and people would cut back and become more selective as to where they would buy and what they would buy. You could find at least some of almost everything that a store like KB Toys or Circuit City would sell at a similar or cheaper price at a competitor, and when the economy was what it was, that mattered a lot. You could also save a lot of effort going to multiple stores, since some stores like Walmart would sell almost everything. And while they wouldn't end at this point, this era would be the beginning of the end of well-established chains such as Kmart and Sears, as pretty much nothing but store closures and financial issues would come from 2010 onward. with Kmart basically resuming a decline that began in the early 2000s. By the end of the 2000s decade, certain things were very clear. Chains like Walmart, Target, and Best Buy were pretty much everywhere and in a lot of locations in where they were. Their convenience, prices, and selection were usually superior to the competition and basically gave people less and less reasons to go to the competition. On top of this, stores such as Costco, which weren't much of a factor in things like electronics in the past, were well established and could compete with many. Add in stores like GameStop with a lower overhead in terms of physical locations, along with places like Walmart and Target offering books, albeit in smaller quantities. Chains like Borders, CompUSA, Circuit City, and KB Toys didn't stand a chance, especially with a strong economic recession carrying on for over a year. There is no doubt that this era was one of much change, and one whose impact can still be seen in the choices of where we have to shop today. Thank you for watching.